Good morning and welcome to our session, Mitigating Risk While Harnessing Generative AI. I'm Jocelyn Houle, today's moderator. As you know, everyone's talking about generative AI with a lot of excitement for new tools like ChatGPT or BART. Today, we're going to focus on that excitement, but also on some of the unique challenges it presents for complex enterprises as they plan how they're going to engage with generative AI while still protecting all of their data inside and outside of the models. Today, we are pleased to have Jack Berkowitz, Chief Data Officer of ADP with us. ADP is one of the largest benefits and payroll companies in the world. Of course, like many of our audience members, Jack's role is to have a very wide span of control that includes harvesting all the value of the data, supporting all the innovation we want from that data, but also staying well managed. We also have Rehan Jalil, CEO of Securiti. Securiti is the leader in unified data controls. Unified Data Controls enable Data Command Center, which provides comprehensive intelligence and automated controls for all data across hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Welcome. Hello, Jack. Hey, Rehan.
Hi. Hey.
Before we get started, Jack, can you give the audience a sense of the scale of ADP?
Yeah, ADP is, as you were saying, we're actually the world's largest provider of HR technology, benefits, payroll. A lot of us know about payroll because most people in the U.S. at one point in their career will actually, either get taxes or their paychecks through ADP services. But we're really, really big. We do business in 140 countries. We have over 1 million clients. In any given month, we have something, nearing 20% of the U.S. population will get paid by us. Another 20% or so will actually have their taxes by us. But the number that always amazes me is the amount of financial information that flows through us. And so in any given year, over $3 trillion will be moved through ADP, for your paychecks, for your taxes, for things like that. So it's a really big company. 62,000 associates, all delivering services to those million clients.
Amazing. I mean, that's very impressive. As someone who's received a timely paycheck from processed by ADP, I'm certainly grateful. You also have done some amazing innovations around compensation equity and other kind of data applications. Is that right?
Yeah. So, as part of our capability, using that information that flows through our systems in an anonymized way, in an aggregated way, we can help companies take some pretty substantial decisions. And so we have, for example, compensation benchmarks that are updated monthly to tell you what's happening around the country. And actually, you're driving down to, for example, 6,500 specific job titles in specific locations. And we can use those benchmarks to understand some really important social issues where people are migrating around the country, for example, who's working from home, what's the gig economy. But one of the more important things that we've done over the past couple of years is help companies close pay equity gaps for people, for different disadvantaged groups, for women. And by automatically processing that information, we've helped companies close over $1 billion in pay equity gaps, just by analyzing the data for them, putting it into a great context, going against the benchmarks. And that contribution to the economy, the contribution to people, is something that ADP stands for, right? Our tagline is always designing for people. And at the end of the day, that's our value. It's that individual person inside of a company. So it's something we're really proud of.
It's an amazing accomplishment, and it's everything that we'd always hoped for in the tech world, right? Of leveraging data to expand value for your customers, for your end users, and then kind of expanding what we think of as a capability in this space. So you've done all of that, and now we have the Gen AI world coming in on top of it, right? So it's kind of like, what are you going to do next to top that? These are the new tool sets. But similarly, I'd love to ask both of you, Rehan, and your work with customers and leaders throughout the country as well. How are people thinking about what is Gen AI and how will it work in the enterprise? Let's just kind of level set there around definitions. Maybe I'll just, Jack, if you want to give us a couple comments, and we'll hand it over to Rehan as well.
Yeah, so the generative AI, which everybody's talking about now in the spring, it's really a step change in machine learning or artificial intelligence technology. Now, the basics of this have been being developed over the past 20 years and accelerating over the past 4 or 5. But what happened starting in November, really in the spring, in February and March, and then just the adoption was really a step change. And because it's really taking advantage of 3 really capabilities. One is all the processing power that the cloud providers now have. The second thing is models and technology to build algorithms. And the third thing is all the data. And those 3 things came together to just create almost a magical experience that we see with all of these large language models, ChatGPT, things like that.
Interesting. Rehan, you've talked to a number of leaders throughout the country in the data space. What are you hearing?
I think, first of all, it's such a pleasure to be actually on this, along with Jack, who's just a visionary in the data. I think it's, as just Jack alluded, this is completely transformational. The part of the reason is the generative AI is significantly different than the traditional machine learning and AI, because if that was all about classifying and recognizing things in existing data, but this is all about taking all that knowledge and creating new data from it, which is transformational. Especially if you take all the knowledge of humans and in all the languages, and you create a construct which is able to understand new data in a much more better way. So significantly, I think what we're seeing that across all the customers, what we're seeing very high appetite at the highest of the levels, from the CEO's office, CDO's office, all the way down, to actually utilize it to create value, incredible value for their customers, their employees, and overall for the industry. That's just happening across all the different verticals. That's
let me ask you a quick question about that.
Fast pace.
Let me just jump in with a quick question about that. So in my personal life, right, ChatGPT is my new best friend. I talk to it all the time, and it's very interesting. But in my work life as an enterprise, working in a large enterprise, I've always worked in large companies. How will I directly interact with these generative AIs, or will I see it? What do you think, like, some use cases or experiences of the average person will be in their work life? Rehan.
Yeah. I think if you think about when we do our typical work, depending on the function, if I'm coding, of course you're going to get help. It's obviously going to, if I'm testing, if I'm in actually customer success, and I want to actually provide the best customer success possible, the interfaces are going to change, because you can just literally take all your technical material, maybe your previous information that exists about your support. You can actually put it out there. How you do marketing, how do you finance? Literally in all these verticals, we're seeing rapidly adoption of generative AI, and our customers are asking us, they want to utilize it, but they utilize it in a safe fashion.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about that. Jack, I don't want to jump over unless you have something here, but I'll summarize the last 6 years of the data world in 2 seconds. Ready? Hooray, cloud data. We're going to democratize data. Uh-oh, we don't know where everything is, and we're not able, and it was like a really arithmetic jump, right, in terms of the need for controls, understanding where your data is. And this just feels like yet another giant jump forward in helping people use data, but also complexity. What kind of things are top of mind for you as considerations, not concerns, but considerations as your company adopts generative AI?
Well, I think it's how people are consuming it and the changes in how that's going to happen, and what we see today and maybe what we project going to happen over the next 24 or 36 months amplifies that need to understand where your data is going. Today people think about it as, well, I go to ChatGPT, or maybe I'm going to use ChatGPT inside my company. You can get OpenAI through Microsoft Azure, for example. You can get a little window, you might use it. But shortly, all of these SaaS applications you use, including the ones that we build, are going to have generative AI capabilities in them. And some of that's going to be generic stuff, right? OpenAI licensed a bunch of data to train their base model, but you're going to augment that information about your data. And so your data is going to be interpreted, whether it's in Office 365, whether it's in Salesforce, whether it's in ADP or somewhere else. And so understanding where your data is flowing, ensuring that our biggest concern is, our customers' PII data, making sure that we're stewards of that, we're custodians of that. We have legal requirements and also, ethical requirements to maintain the privacy of people. And
Interesting.
so as these different systems pick it up, we need to make sure that we're understanding where it's going and how it's going, and that we agree with that.
So I love what you're saying, right? You understand where it's going, like what's the consumption model, so you can back it out and understand all the data that's going into it. Great. Why don't we just do that? So why is that, different in the Gen AI world, Rehan?
Yeah, I think if you think about these models, they tend to memorize. So when the data goes into these models, often you don't know when they produce an answer to a prompt, where is it coming from exactly? And what exactly is the cause? They tend to memorize, especially the bigger the model tend to memorize. Just like a human brain. If I told you something and then I ask you to forget it, you're not going to forget it. It may fade away over time, but you're not going to forget by choice. Similarly here, if the data goes in, it can be prompted out by some prompt. So all the controls before the data goes in has to be there, to guarantee that it won't be prompt engineered. Now, of course, no question on the prompt side, you still actually have to have filters and, all the controls. And so it's significantly different as compared to what we've ever seen. It's not a traditional software. It's not a traditional AI. And this thing generates new data based on what it was fed. If you get it wrong, or if you give it something confidential or sensitive, it's going to answer you that way. So there's a new kind of a paradigm, and the controls needed are also significantly more thoughtful are needed here.
Yeah, that's a really helpful. I like that notion of memorizing because I think it's related to the question I had for you, Jack, which I've just started hearing. You may have been sitting with this question longer, of the idea of access management, right? So for me, I might be using my internal generative AI and asking questions about data I normally wouldn't have access to, or data that has somehow been munged. It's kind of like similar to memorizing. It's like accidentally telling secrets. So have you guys thought about how to handle that kind of IP leakage that might come through?
Well, certainly, that's one of our largest concerns. One of our largest concerns is because we deal with data about people, we deal with some sensitive things about people. We can't have that happen, right? And we need to think about and think through how we give people access and how we have the traceability to ensure that we're putting in all the controls that we need. Now, the way we're thinking about it is yes, it's a step change in technology, but it doesn't change sort of the basic principles of software engineering or software systems. You still need to give proper authorization. You still need to think about the traceability and the understanding of lineage of all this information. You need to think about the quality of service that you're going to provide. And but then it adds levels, right? So you need to think about the governance as to which types of models you're going to use and when, which use cases is where it's applicable. And so all of this comes together into a system. So we've been working for several years, starting in 2019, with a data and AI ethics board that we put together that advises us on not just the legal aspect, but the ethical aspect of how we use information and data. And that ethics board is both, ADP people, as well as we bring external experts in that committee. And we look at these use cases, we analyze them, we bring them forward, and we've actually amplified that now to take into account all of the new capabilities of generative AI. We don't want to restrict its use. We actually want to take advantage of it, but we want to take advantage of it in a way that's the right thing for our clients.
I love that idea of having a board of directors or thought leadership community, because things are changing so quickly. And in this discussion, right, we've already covered some things some people already in this audience certainly already know, right? It's big, it's going to be great, it's going to have some special concerns around data, and the context on that data is everything, right? So that kind of brings us up to right now in this conversation. I'd love to take some time to really drill down into special considerations for generative AI. Rehan, I know you have a technical background as well, and you spend a lot of time in this AI space as well. Help me understand what, is it one model that I care about when I'm trying to control this thing? Is it multiple models? How do they work together? It's different from the world of descriptive statistics. Help me understand how.
Yeah, I think if you think about, because in an organization of any size, there would be multiple functions who would try to utilize the generative AI. I think we're seeing very quick proliferation of models. I mean, there are so many different alphabet soup of models that actually exist, which I'm not going to go into details of. But within an organization, you're going to see that. Developers are going to pick the right models, how they're utilizing it. Some models are going to be more useful for certain functions, and some models are going to be used for some other functions. And frankly, personal preferences of developers, they're going to experiment with it. For right reasons, they're going to experiment with it. So within your development environments, within your cloud environment, your data centers, there's going to be very quick proliferation of these models, which needs to be detected, because the models themselves actually have highly compressed kind of knowledge could be sitting in there, which can be prompted out. This is not a traditional software sitting somewhere. This is actually highly compressed information sitting in those things, which can be prompted out. And the model itself can be, could be, malicious in the sense that what it's trying to do, the way it's trying to be, it could have been engineered, which means the discovery of the models have to be there. At any given time, you have to see in your environment what models are active, and the governance on these models, which means the risk assessments, the testing of these models for security, basic security has to be there, right? And then, of course, there is a ton of hacks on the models actually evolving, from issue with the poisoning of the model to prompt injection to hallucination abuse to fairness and bias. How much sensitive data is sitting in there. All these things, again, is going to need to be understood. And then something that Jack alluded to, the SaaS services that a company is utilizing, what are they doing? Because they would be utilizing their models and giving them data, what's happening with the data. So there's a whole risk assessment and governance, and both actually have to be ongoing basis. It has to be actually be done.
Interesting.
And think about this, Jocelyn. You were asking, is this one model? In a given application, might be hitting one model, but what we're going to start to see is a series of models put together in series, and so automation may happen. And so, the output of one model actually informing then the prompts for a second model, and then possibly then a chain to a third model. And so this level of automation, which is going to create wonderful new capabilities, also needs to be understood. And
interesting.
And these behaviors, how you test these things is totally different than the way we used to test software, and how you used to test data systems. And so we're going to need to learn, and I don't think anybody has an answer today, but we're going to need to learn over time how these things all interplay.
I was just going to ask you how we're going to test it, but we'll wait on that answer while we're figuring it out. No, it feels like you're moving from like a 2D world and you're suddenly moving into 3D because of this layering of the models. And help me understand too, as an end user, yeah, I see ChatGPT. That seems pretty, legit. Comes from the companies that support it seem legit. But there's also going to be like open source and private LLMs, right, that companies are using. I don't really understand that. Maybe you can help me think about how that would look in an enterprise. Rehan, maybe. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in an enterprise, you're definitely going to see that, because there's private data. So ChatGPT, it's amazing innovation, right? But primarily by themselves, it's consumer focused. And of course, you can use the OpenAI kind of APIs to actually use the power of that understanding. But at the same time, we clearly seen in enterprises that there is desire and actual use of open source